Catch
Yeah.
our flag.
Everybody all set? Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get to the comments and statements, as you guys know as you're here, and those of you that are watching on television, we are in a slightly different, usually we're at the high school, today we're at the middle school. We wanted to give people the opportunity to come to our meeting, come and see the school, and see what has happened with the remediation that has been done. So moving on, are there any comments and statements from the public? Anybody? Okay. On to the informational agenda. Recognition of the 2010-2011 retirees. So how would you like to do this with the 5 of them?
We have 5 staff members that retired at the end of last year. It's a hectic end of the year, so I figured we'd give them a little bit of a chance to taste what it feels like to be out and about and not have to get up early in the morning. So I figured I give them a little something and actually bring them in front of the camera. So I have a few things for you. A little something that I wrote and a little card in appreciation for all the years that you spent here. I know we couldn't have you here at the end of the year. We did mention who they were, how many years they've been here, but I figured we'd do something for them and maybe ask them if they want to tell us what they've been doing. Mr. Roy? You can open it. Mr. Outfoot? Mr. Cook? A little bit of a joke in the... Is that the one? I know you don't have to worry about Fridays anymore, so I figured, now you can use Fridays any day of the week. So there's a little something in there for you. Hope you enjoy the funnies, if they were funnies. I did have some help from some people picking who gets which one. Would you guys like to say a little bit about what you've been doing now that you're retired for real?
Mr. Roy, well, why don't you come up to the microphone?
Come on, we want to hear it.
You got to come up to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
I think most of the people in this room probably know what I've been doing this last summer. Same thing Dr. Cully does in a lot of his free time. By the way, 33 pounds, Striker is that's what you have to beat. And,
Okay.
Hopefully I'll do better by the back end this year. Hopefully it'll be a lot better. But I would like to thank you all. Really enjoyed my time here in Westport. It was 32 years of a lot of fun and great experiences, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You have a lot to say, so why don't you come up and tell us what you've been doing with your summer?
I have a lot to say. As most of you know, I lost my wife last year in December to a very rare form of cancer that it turns out is not as rare as anybody thought it was. We're looking at the average person who's diagnosed with the disease gets 3 wrong diagnoses before they get it right, and God knows how many people are actually dying from it. So I have spent the interim time putting together a foundation called Walking with Jane, and doing fundraising and working with Dana-Farber and the American Cancer Society and anybody else I can find to try and put this disease down the way we would put down a sick dog. So far, since the beginning of June, we've raised almost $7,000 to go with $4,000 that we had already raised previous to that. And this weekend, I will be doing the Jimmy Fund Marathon Walk from Hopkinton to Boston. My team says I have to be there at 5:45 in the morning. So, every morning I get up and I try and move that rock. And I'm going to keep moving that rock. I really haven't realized that I'm retired yet, because the next day it was right back into doing what it is I need to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook.
I would not wish upon any of you here, my 3 kids, my own kids, Wyoming, California, Vermont. So this has given me an opportunity to visit with them. As far as I should be giving you something to thank you, because I have had a simply wonderful experience here. The kids, I love the kids that I've come in contact with in the 18 and 19 years that I've been here. So what I should do is say thank you, thank you.
Mrs. Eastwood.
I feel very fortunate, too, to have been a Westport girl, grown up in Westport, and able to pursue my career in the town that I love. And I have been enjoying quite a bit of travel, trying to get that out of the system. My husband's going to take away my computer if I don't stop Googling and making travel arrangements, because he said I'll have to return to work if we continue at the pace we're going, but I'd like to get that out of my system. So I've been really enjoying my summer, and the idea that we won't have to pay school vacation prices to travel is pretty exciting. But I do thank you very much for the career that I had. It will always remain in my heart.
Mr. Sullivan.
I first have to say that after 35 years here at the Westport Middle School, I didn't expect to be back in the media center so quickly. It's been a privilege to work with the children and the families of Westport. And I would be lying if I said I didn't miss that, and I certainly will miss that. On the other hand, I have a 1-month-old grandson. Looking forward to spending a lot of quality time with him. And I had a tea time this morning at the Fall River Country Club, and I'll be playing for the Hawthorne Country Club tomorrow, so golfing is not a bad alternative either. Thank you very much.
I know I'd like to say I wish all of you the best of luck. I have had the privilege of having several of you for teachers. Some of you seen my children come through the schools. And I wish you all the best of luck with what your future holds. You are all still vibrant and active, and lots left to do. So I look forward to seeing you all around town. And best of luck. Stop in and say hi. Does anybody else have anything to say hello?
I'd just like
Mike?
to add, I know I promised not to say much at this meeting, but I can't let this moment go unnoticed. Part of my motivation for getting involved in the school committee was paying back those of you that were involved with my child's educational career. You know how much we appreciate it, and you did a great job. So you were part of a team here, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Proudfoot, I would just like to give your foundation a little bit of a plug. What's the website? Walking with Jane? WalkingWithJane.org. So if anybody wants to find any more information about it, Jane Dabowski was a science teacher at the high school, a very loved science teacher at the high school for many, many years. So if there's anything that you'd like to, he's looking for help, people, volunteers, walkers, whatever. seek him out. He's definitely looking for some help, so thank you guys. Dr. Colley, is that it for them?
That
They're
was
good?
it. I just
Enjoy
thank
your
you for
gift
coming and
cards.
taking a little bit out of your retirement. Thank you. Hopefully you
They
enjoy
had,
that.
they all received a TGI Friday gift card, so.
You don't need to do this on
Yeah.
Friday. You can do it any time of the week.
Okay, yeah, that was the Friday reference. Okay, moving on to the update on the middle school. Dr. Colley. Get started.
Okay, let's see if I can get up into that. Again, I'm going back to using the website because we keep posting information there almost as soon as we get it. Since the last time we were here last week, we did get a couple of, we basically got all the reports we were waiting for, but they didn't all come at the levels we wanted. So right now, let me scroll down. I'm just taking you to see how you can get there. If you're at home, you can just scroll down to the bottom of my letter. It's not the easiest for me to scroll. There we go. And down below, you have pretty much everything that we've presented, whether it be at school committee or at basically summaries of open meetings that we've had, and including, and these actually need to be rescanned because we just got more today. So if you take a look, load up. We are having technical difficulties because, there it is. Basically, we had last week identified some rooms, in particular in the lower level, that had levels above 300 but below 450, and those have come back, like the girls' locker room we hadn't done, although we assumed that this whole area would be low. It did come back low. We also got, after re-cleaning and retesting, all these rooms, the 110, 108, 107, 171, they all came down below 300. So the whole downstairs is open now. Upstairs is a slightly different story. We didn't have any results until sometime this afternoon. I don't know. I think I opened them around 3:30. And the only rooms we were able to clear were these two little rooms here, which are those two behind the stacks. Room 264 and 283. So those are now green, if you will. They're below 300. Some of the cafeteria areas are now below 400 or between 450 and 300, but none of them came down below 300. So at this point, in the offices, we also have 249 that's still not below, and 263, 255, 256, 251. They're still below, above 300. So, as a quick update, that's where we are. We will rescan the map, because basically we just got it this afternoon. We didn't have time to rescan it, and now we can talk about what it all means.
Michelle. Dr. Colley, what are the actual totals, though? Because I know there's a few parents here, and I know parents have been watching on TV. I know we have it here. This is why we have a nice chart here with all red on it.
I have some additional copies.
Okay, because This looks a lot different from what we had last week. That looks like some areas have gone up, and what are the actual totals? I know one room I knew of was 2,400, and
That one was tested last, and I don't think that one's come back. Right, so we don't have that one yet. If you take a look, the numbers up there and the numbers here are a little different. For example, one side of the cafeteria was 710, the other side of the cafeteria was 680. The 710 went down to 560, the 680 went down to 370, 390. The main area of the kitchen was around 760, it's gone down to 430. So basically, they're coming down. The only area that I'm concerned with is the offices. We have some rather high numbers, and I'll be honest, the only thing that we didn't do there that we did exactly here, which is one of the nice reasons to be here, here we removed the tectum, so if you look up, you get to see that it's now bare cement up there. We also had a carpet, and the carpet's gone. We did have a small test in one room where we covered half the carpet, taped off that side of the room, and tested the other side of the room with the carpet exposed. There was a small difference between the two. This area that we knew we would definitely have children in, we removed the carpet. That was one of the decisions we did. But the offices, in our mind, children are there just sporadically to come in and out. So we did not remove the carpet there. That may be something we need to do. And again, we're going to have Fuss and O'Neill's here. I know they've been, did you get to look, have any ideas?
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things is the carpet.
You're going to need to speak into the mic.
So I did spend some time today, this afternoon, walking around a little bit, and a few ideas come to mind. The first thing we're going to do is the second consultant, we are going to bring them in for a consultation and put two heads together and take a look at this and see if they can actually shed some other light as well, so we can get two heads looking at this. That's number one. Number two, carpet area is definitely one of the areas that we look at. We didn't remove the carpet. It's been in there. The remediation work was done, so we are going to look at removing that carpet. One of the other issues we have, and one of the things I looked at, is a lot of these areas have potentially a lack of ventilation in some of them, meaning that they draw their air. For instance, the several rooms in the corner over here, the doors are undercut and they actually draw their fresh air through this room, so that lack of ventilation could be something. So I may explore with my mechanical engineer to see if there's something we can do to introduce some mechanical ventilation in those spaces. Because I think that's another pattern that I do see here. A lot of the rooms that are still above 300 are areas where we potentially have lack of ventilation in them, so we're going to explore that. And the last thing that I thought of as a potential is we know that the brick with the exterior caulking, that the brick, it had migrated into the brick, and of course that was not something we're going to do under this project. A lot of these spaces where we still have the higher results, the windows are a little different condition than most of the school. They actually are closer to the interior of the building. You don't have a recessed window. You actually have it pretty much right there, the brick on the interior. You don't have another plaster wall and some additional finishes in there. So one of my thoughts is that you could actually be having some of the material that's leached into that brick potentially coming in. And one of the thoughts that I had shared with Dr. Colley is maybe we could explore sealing the brick on the inside, maybe half an inch or so, or 6 inches away from the window, to see if that would also help us with that. And again, the window sills around there as well, to see if that helps us. So those are some of the theories, some of the things we're thinking about. Again, seeing the results come down half of what they were in the cafeteria was encouraging. We didn't see that same results in the office area, and again, I think the carpet is another area there that we are concerned about.
Eric, your follow-up?
two parts, yeah. Actually, Bob, Mr. Mayor, you can answer both of these. With the whole corner of a building, any shared ventilation with any of that? Because it looks like it's the whole top floor corner that no matter how many times you clean one goes under, it's just going to recontaminate it if any of it has a shared ventilation system at all.
The cafeteria, which is a very large portion of that, essentially that whole wrapped corner, that has its own independent. They actually are unit ventilators similar to here, which are at the ceiling and actually draw the air from the roof. So they were not an area that was actually drawing from the window, caulking, as the other areas of the building were. The office area actually does not have its own ventilation system. It actually draws its fresh air through the other areas of the building, through the corridors and so forth, because it's open to the corridors. So we actually have sealed that with plastic, and could be not getting a good ventilation in there, mixing with the building air, but of course we don't want to do that while the building is occupied, so we are going to have to explore that. And a couple other rooms, room 212 did come down substantially. It's now at about 310. It's actually where the pilot was done initially, but basically that room does have its own independent unit ventilator out the window, but no other rooms share with that.
Now, the second part of that, you're mentioning eliminating the brick around the windows. That's our original project of the green projects. Is that going to fall under that now? We can have that paid for
Not
the green
eliminating the
projects?
brick, but actually sealing the brick. Just basically, the brick is a very porous surface, so what we want to do is actually seal the brick as a temporary solution now to see if that helps bring those levels down. Not to actually remove it at this point.
Will that take away from doing the green projects once this building is totally cleared? If we seal it now, are we going to be not falling under the green?
No, I mean, essentially, if you seal it now, it's a temporary solution, again, to try and get the air samples down. Certainly, moving forward with the green repair project, the solution would typically be to remove that brick, and that would still be possible even if it's sealed.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, and then Mike.
I was actually going to ask about ventilation. I'm wondering if you could maybe explore or explain the ventilation situation over there a little bit more, maybe in terms of options that might be possible in the main office specifically, but also in the rest of that corner with the cafeteria and the kitchen.
That is definitely something I'm going to have to explore with my mechanical engineer. I mean, I had him out here actually early on in the process, but we really hadn't explored much other than looking to see if with the existing ventilation systems, if there was anything we could do, the way that we could introduce some mechanical systems through the openings there. I mean, it would be a lot of work. It's not going to be a quick fix, other than we could potentially get some temporary units in here to potentially do that. There's definitely situations we can do that. We had done a project in another town where we actually had external exhaust systems that actually brought in fresh air. So there is options there. We could do temporary until a more permanent fix could be done.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan?
Hi, Mr. May. Good to see you again. A couple of questions that I noted, and it's more carryover from our previous discussions. Most importantly is the Congener report. It really seems to me that that's the core of all decisions. You've explained it well to us. We don't know what PCBs we're looking at. And my understanding is it may be that this PCB that's 2400 is not deemed to be a health hazard. So I think we really want to find out, if at all possible, kind of fast track. And I know it's expensive. I know I'm not speaking to where we've been on time, but I really think before we go too far forward, and ventilation, which is part of what's moving around here, but let's find out what is moving around. The Congener report is...
I can actually update you that there's not a formal report as of yet, but we actually have received the Congener air data, and we've actually done some of the calculations. Unfortunately, what we have here, it's not the most health risk-based materials in that sample, but we have more of others that we wouldn't normally see in EPAs when they did their calculations. So we did see the number, we did actually calculate it, and it moved very slightly. The number right now, and again, this is not formal yet, but is about 315, so it hasn't moved very much, unfortunately. The chemical compound here, which is Aerochlor 1254, EPA used that in one of its models to look at the toxicity and look at its guidance concentration. We are in that range because the compound we have here is 1254, but again, the chemical is specific to this site. There are more chlorine-type compounds in there than EPA actually used in their calculations, which push the number up, but the real bad ones, which EPA had assumed in their calculations, are not present. So it didn't move much, like 315, like I said, is where we're at right now. So we have done that. The formal report is still coming. We're still looking at that data, but that's a preliminary at this point. It doesn't look like it's going to help us that much to move that number.
So again, what I'm driving at is the Congener report to the consultant with the EPA directive letter. Have we had any communication from EPA what we need to do?
With respect to the current results?
Well, from day one, who's driving these decisions? We're learning, and we're learning much more than we realized we were going to be learning during our summer courses. But we now have to go to a consultant and say, we've done our best, we've got an awful lot of green area, where do we go? The Congener report, I think, is key, but also the EPA, who is looking at their regulations and saying, well, maybe it's not as bad as we said 12 years ago, we're not sure. Can we get have we gotten any communication from the Environmental Protection Agency to be part of that new consultant meeting? And then my question on the consultant is, are we going to be part of deciding who's going to hire the consultant? You said a second consultant, I don't know.
The consultant actually has been hired by Westport Community Schools already. They've finally been in
It's done.
standby mode. It's a firm that was hired to do the work. So
LVI?
basically, what's that?
Was it LVI?
No.
Woodard and Curran. It's actually
correct.
another environmental
Woodward.
consulting firm, engineering firm, who also does a lot of work, works a lot with EPA. So they have already been retained by the school. So we're going to bring them in to, again, put the heads together and take a look at this jointly to see if
I
there's
wasn't
other
aware
options.
we had any other consultant.
As far as EPA involvement, a project like this, the EPA, in terms of things in writing, directives to do work, they don't operate under those circumstances. The project that you undertook this summer is a source removal project. They don't really regulate that as far as an approved plan, an approved process, and really approve your methods. But we have had EPA here. They've been to the site 2 times to look at the building, to have, we've had them in a meeting with the superintendent, contractors, to understand, to present the pilot results when we did that, so that they understood what we were doing and what the intent of the project was. And all along during the correspondence here of the wipe sample results and air sample results coming in, they've been provided to EPA for their information and knowledge of the project. One, for additional guidance that they can provide us, and secondly, so that they can answer questions, because there certainly are parents, teachers, school committee members, whoever, that are actually calling EPA as well to get their own questions answered directly from EPA. So that information has been disseminated. I actually did speak with EPA today specifically on the results that we've gotten for the corner of the building that we're talking about. And her suggestion was very similar to what we're talking about, but also to look to see if there may be additional sources, whether they've been missed or sources that we haven't picked up on in those areas, to see if we can
And
explore
we
that.
can't ask her for that directive in writing?
You're not going to get a directive in writing on something that they really don't regulate. They don't regulate the removal of source materials.
Eric?
Bob, one other thing, looking at that chart again, green all the way down on the bottom, obviously hot air rises, obviously heat is a potential elevator of the numbers. What are we looking at going into the winter now, turning on the heat in this building and heating up the whole building? Have you guys thought that far ahead of what we're going to be doing now when we start turning on the heat?
I mean, we know heat can, actually, it's something that is thought as a potential. There's really not enough studies to know that heat definitely impacts it. There is some trends that appear that heat does it, and usually it's summer months where you're dealing with temperatures well above 80, 90 degrees versus your comfort temperatures are going to be in the 68 to 70 degree range. So it shouldn't have an effect during the winter months for heating in the building that you would have in the summertime when a building is closed up and subjected to summer temperatures without any type of mechanical ventilation, such as air conditioning and so forth. So although heat and temperature does seem to affect the results, again, there's not enough study, and in our opinion, again, based on what we understand of the temperatures and proposed in the school, it shouldn't be a variable. We have been taking temperatures along with all these samples. That's a
I noticed
variable in
that.
data we actually haven't explored yet, but certainly will be, to see if any of the high results, if we can equate those to a high temperature. But that's part of the data validation phase, which is going to take a lot longer. These are results, again, we just got one set of results in here about 2:30 this afternoon. So we still need some time to evaluate all the data fully.
Just a couple of things in terms of the Woodward and Curran. We did go back, and I'm trying to remember the other company. We did ask for a couple of companies to give us quotes, and this was back before August 8th or 9th, somewhere in there. And we did get one quote that was really, really high. I did bring it to the attention of the school committee. I told them that I would go with the one with the lower quote. Again, we were waiting to finish the project to have them come in and tell us, this is the time to bring them in, when we're running into, okay, we've done everything we thought we could do. Now, what's left? We do have some areas that we would like to to use, and particularly the offices and the cafeteria. There's some offices that, for example, here in the media center, that are still off, above 300, and a conference room, which we would like to use, but it's not critical that we have those all open. We do have one classroom that we would like to be able to open, so this is the time to bring somebody else in and say, okay, how can we do this? In the meantime, I could say at least the educational portion of the school can continue to run. I would like to see what we can do about setting up alternative offices, perhaps using these 2 rooms back here for principal guidance, to give them a little bit of privacy when they have to meet with parents or students now that those rooms are cleared. We'll have to continue doing the, Meals on Wheels, Ms. Raposa. We'll have to continue that until we clear the cafeteria and the lunchroom. And there may be some additional, I know the principal and the assistant principal have been working on a schedule to make sure everybody gets their break for lunch. And if we have any issues with that, I said that we would try to get substitutes in here to provide some relief for people, so they don't spend, 6.5 hours in a room with the kids without any breaks. So,
In the cafeteria, having the large open room, it's interesting to me that half the room is 370 and the other half is 560. Is there ventilation that could be causing that? And in that particular room where there is no carpet, I assume that's where you're thinking it might be coming, the source being the brick? Because what else is in the cafeteria to...
Correct. I mean, we have seen some variation in the air samples to begin with. I mean, it's about a little over 100 nanogram difference between the 510 to, I think it's like 390, I think is one of the levels.
560 and 370.
Yeah, so it's about 130, what have you. But essentially, you can have some variation. It definitely could be ventilation. We are ventilating that space. There is a large fan that's actually working to ventilate that space. It could be that we're not getting as much cross ventilation from that area, that we need to look at and address that. Certainly, like I said, it's an open room, but it is something, again, you can have dead spots within the room. We can do some different things, smoke testing and things, to see where the path of travel for air is flowing in that room, and take a look at that. So we can look into that a little bit.
It was just something I noticed. Does anybody else have any questions on this part?
I was going to mention just quickly that, some people have mentioned, what are the fans doing? Part of it is ventilating those areas that are high outside, rather than letting the building draw air in through these areas. So it's one way to get some of this out and dissipated into the great big world out there. But again, I'm disappointed that the numbers did not come down, and this is why I'm suggesting it's time to bring in the other company to try to address, is there anything that we've missed?
Mr. Sullivan?
Just in looking at the map and knowing we have a lot of data, we talked about possibly a presentation that would give a historical history by room. Is that something we're going to be able to...
It should be in your packet. There's actually a table.
The Excel
It's basically
spreadsheet?
Excel spreadsheet.
Yes. Okay.
Room by room, the listing in order, giving you an
Oh, it's
idea
on
of
the
what the
blotter?
samples were, and
Thank
then
you.
whether it passed fail versus EPA's guidance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I assume at this point, the classrooms that have been closed, the 2 fifth grade classrooms, those will,
I believe they started to move back, the 5th grade going back then.
Mr. Simonello, do you want to come up and just tell us how the week has been? Perfect.
That was actually, I was going to go
Okay.
there. You kind of alluded to some of the disruptions and the accommodations. I was just wondering, there are large areas of the school, common areas that are taped off. There's been some serious physical disruption to the building, although this actually looks pretty good. I'm just wondering, how's the educational atmosphere for the students? They're eating their lunches in classroom.
Yes.
So forth.
The teachers have done an excellent job of making the school year as normal as it can be. The ceiling tiles that were removed A lot of the kids didn't even notice it. It was white to begin with, it's painted white again. The echoing effect, and you really don't hear it a whole lot here, probably because of these ceiling tiles, but the classrooms do have an echoing effect. Anyone who has been in Mr. Holt's science class will know his voice echoes anyways, but it is even now more. He's still hearing things he said yesterday. Yes, we do eat here in the lunches get served here. They go back down to the classrooms, they sit in their classrooms. The kids for the first part of the first couple of days thought it was a great idea. Small little lunches, they thought it was great. I had no discipline problems, it was wonderful. It's starting to, the uniqueness of it is starting to wear away. They don't see their friends at lunchtime. The kids are being educated. The two fifth grade classrooms that were up here in the, one in the media center and one in the greenhouse have moved back down to the fifth grade wing. The sixth grade science room, that has moved back to where it was. It was located in the room right next to it. And a fifth grade special education room was sharing a room with another special needs teacher. They're now back to where they were. So right now, all the academic classes are back to where they were. Class is resuming as it has always been. The two teachers who were displaced did a really good job using the space that they had, using the materials that they had, and did the best that they could with it. And I think they did a superb job. But there are, like you said, there are areas of the building that are taped off, big plastic sheets. The office, we can't use the office right now, which is really difficult to manage the school day and everything else without that access. We had been going in to make announcements. Now that the levels, the second results are back, I don't think we're going to be doing that now. I don't think I want anyone back in there until all those levels have come down further. So that hinders us a lot. Thank goodness the nurse's office is not part of that suite for some reason, because that would be a major problem. But the kids come in the morning, they go to the gymnasium instead of going to the cafeteria. They're all fine with it. They sit there, they chit-chat just like they did before, and then we just miss them from there. It's fine. They've kind of got used to it. The regulations that the fire department imposed upon the two stairwells next to the cafeteria, only being down stairways, actually that's a great idea. I might continue that. It just makes the flow of the students leaving the cafeteria a whole lot easier, especially in the morning. And that they've been used to that as well. There's a lot less foot traffic, obviously, near the office area. The clerk is sitting outside in the hallway. That's difficult. You have wires like this gone across. And the one aspect of the middle school that the fifth graders have heard so much about, the great lunches, they are now getting a bag lunch. So, but it is what it is, and we're making the best out of it. So we're going to continue.
The art room is now clear as
The
well,
art
so
room's
that'll
clear,
be a
so
nice
McGuire's
thing
will
to
be
have
very
back.
happy.
And
That's the old room, by the way.
Tony?
Bob, do you think that, we have the fans in the cafeteria, blowing this air out. Do you think you're sucking some of that air in from the office into the cafeteria area? I know we've got the sheets there, but those sheets aren't completely sealed.
I mean, the location of the fans is such that I wouldn't think so. We've actually located the loading dock, which is way away from this area. Certainly, if we're taking something that is lower to begin with and pulling that out, again, we would see a decrease of magnitude. You see, the office area is fairly high compared to the cafeteria, so I don't think we're contaminating that distance. And again, we're taking clear air and blowing it out.
I'm actually glad you brought up the noise factor. One of the rooms, as far as, I think Mr. Holt's room is probably the loudest classroom that I have seen as I walk through the school. And aside from the band room, That's one room that
Yes.
I have serious concerns about just the work environment for the teacher and for the students, because if we're going to look at any room, I think that's one room we need to look at and do something about the noise level in that room when he has 22 and 24 students all playing an instrument. It is like a cavern in there. I really don't know how he can function. I really don't. And I know from what I've heard from students and from staff, it's louder down the hallway as well. You can hear the band rehearsing more down the hallway than you could previously. And in addition to that, in reference to the 2400 room and that teacher that was displaced, depending on what those results come back, I mean, I would hope that if she's working out of the small gym as a music teacher, maybe we can get her into the auditorium if her classroom isn't available. I think that's more conducive to what she does.
The only thing I looked at that and I had the same idea, I just don't know about the egress, because now we have two doors at the top that we cannot use. We can't go through her room. So you really have one,
Down by the band room.
yeah, and I don't know if the fire department allows that as an egress, because it is a
Okay.
small corridor. I just want them, and Dr. Colley, to say, yep, go ahead and use it, and that's a perfect alternative for
Well, you do have there are two doors there. There's one off the stage
off
as
the
well.
stage, yeah.
And
But
you
they're
do have
both
one
into
off
the same, ma'am.
You have one
We'll
off
ask-
the
we'll
band
ask the
room
fire
too,
department.
but- So those are just a couple of comments, but I would like, to look into something for Mr. Nunes down there, because poor guy's going to be deaf by the end of the year, I think. Does anybody else have any other comments or concerns on this? Okay, thank you.
Concerns, Bob.
Huh?
A lot of concerns,
Oh, I
but
know. No more comments.
I have a couple other things on the update for the middle school. We have been getting information rather, on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. We will be loading this information up to the website. That's why I started over there. The other thing that you asked me to do is to try to give an idea of where we are in terms of, we started getting the invoices from the different companies that have been working for us. And, I've even been checking the time sheets that they have as to how many staff were here, how long did they work, how many hours, crunching out the multiplying number of men times the number of hours times the rates that they quoted us. I haven't seen anything that's, that I can't quantify, and we're looking at approximately right now 2.7 mil. I did get a chance to go to the FinCom last night, just because they asked me if I could give them a ballpark figure. They were talking to another department anyway, and I basically gave them the same ballpark figure, but I told them, like I'm going to tell you, we're not done, because if we're going to do the offices, that means removing everything from the offices, taking out the carpets, more tile, moving everything back into the offices, of whatever level of cleaning or any remediation that we continue to do. If we add ventilation, that's going to add to the price tag. So honestly, I took a wild guess and told the FinCom it could be up to 3 when we're all said and done. And we haven't finished all the testing, because we're still going to do the quarterly testing. So there's still some costs that we're going to incur over the course of the year. So I told him I'd keep them updated.
Mr. Sullivan?
Actually, he answered the question, so
Okay.
3 million is the projected total cost?
I'm taking a stab at this, just going from the amount of cost to remove the carpet here, the tile, the moving cost, the number of people that it took. The part that's a wild card is what additional things we need to do to that space. I can estimate the moving, I can estimate the cost of the tile versus the rug. I can't estimate what any additional ventilation requirements would be. And if we add things like remediation for some of the noise conditions, like in the band room, that's a cost, whether it be a drop ceiling or something that the fire people would allow us to have. maybe area rugs to bring back some of the dampening effect of fabric versus hard floors.
And those are new costs. Is there any outstanding invoices that aren't on this report yet?
None that I know of at this point. If you take a look, you have Triumvirate through 9/4, Fuzz and O'Neill through 9/2. Obviously, they're still here, so there'll be a few more of those coming. The moving company did bill us through 9/7. They haven't been here since. I mean, I don't know if we'll move office stuff ourselves. We probably will, because it's not a huge job. The question is, can we do it like at night and using our own staff, or do we have to bring some of the day staff, keep them extra hours? Those are the questions that I have.
Bob, I have a question. I'm not sure what day, maybe Saturday, Monday, there was guys out in front of the school on demand lifts doing some work around the windows.
They were actually re-caulking, not removing caulk.
Oh,
Exterior
yeah.
caulk plans were being re-caulked with new caulk materials. That was something that got delayed when the hurricane and we all the caulking material with the wet. That was what they were actually.
And that was done before the tests were done.
No, actually testing was done Friday, so we weren't here on Saturday. The testing had already been taken Thursday and Friday last week.
I mean, why was the testing done before the caulking was done?
Well, the new caulk shouldn't have PCBs in it. They were just, all the old caulk was removed already. So all they
Oh,
were
it just
doing.
hadn't applied to new caulk, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. It was trying to clarify. We didn't want the windows leaking.
Can you come up? I'm sorry. Sorry. Gotta introduce yourself. That way we know who you are.
My name is Paula Gilmore. I just have a quick question. You said that the lower level is all... Talk to the mic.
Yeah, talking to the mic. I know, it's tough.
You put the lower levels all cleaned, and the windows, they put new caulk, but is it, like, it's not contaminated, it's in the... It's under, how should I say this?
Encapsulation.
What is it?
It's encapsulated.
It's not something that in a few years from now, they're going to say that it's not in the procedures. You know what I mean? Like, then they're not going to say 10 years from now, it's contaminated.
Mr. May, do you want to answer that?
Do you want to answer, or let me do?
I can take it instead of here. As far as, basically when you remove caulk, you're removing a source material that contains regulated concentrations of PCBs. There's actually two steps to remediation for PCBs. That is the first step. The second step is to address the adjacent surfaces. PCBs will migrate into brick and other porous surfaces. This is step one. Step two is going to be a future window project and so forth. What we have done is actually reseal that with a new caulking. Where we did work on the inside, we also applied an encapsulant adjacent to where the caulk was removed and then put caulk to prevent that migration into the new caulking material. We did not do that on the exterior of the building, but we did that all throughout the interior of the building. And the other thing we actually did, none of the windows inside the building actually had caulking on the inside, and we actually applied a bead of caulking there as well to, again, help seal from that exterior.
And soil, you said was contaminated. What are you going to do to remove that?
That, again, is going to be a future project. There's some very low levels there. Again, it's considered a remediation. It's not a source material. It's contamination from years of this caulking. So it'll be a future phase, but it isn't something contributing to indoor air, and it's something that will be addressed later, especially with the window project.
It's on the lower, it's not on top of the children going on there, and they can bring that home and contaminate the road to get around.
The only places where it was actually found was very close to the building. And basically, it is within the soil. Most of the areas around the building actually have sod on top of it, so we actually tested the soil beneath it for water and so forth getting down to the soil.
And also to follow up on that, the EPA has already sort of told us that this is phase one. This is not a fix. This is sort of a Band-Aid for a bigger bleed. So we still will have some work to do and figure out what we'll do from there. I think you kind of alluded to that question too. And we'll be doing monitoring throughout the year as well. And by the time the entire school has been tested, we'll go through the year. So every room will get retested throughout the year.
And one other question I had was, you're saying that the upper level is still contaminated, and I noticed that the kids come up here. Is that safe for them?
The upper levels in the cafeteria and in the office area, the other areas are clean. This is cleared. The areas that are not safe are closed off.
But some, the paper it's kind of open, so the air just goes through, and they breathe that in.
And that,
I did speak to the contractor because of the time, and did put up temporary barriers, anticipating a big boom, but we are going to, because this is going to be a process, they will be here tonight to do some additional sealing of them, more permanent, probably shooting some wood furring in, so we actually have a better surface that we can staple and nail to, to make it a little more permanent. Again, we did this kind of temporary last week, and there will be more aggressive to be more permanent because it's going to be spent.
and again, one of the things that I did ask, and they've been doing, is ventilating these areas out so it draws from the clean areas through the bad areas and out, so the air is not traveling into the clean areas from the areas that are contaminated. It's kind of one of those ways people asked about, can the stuff go out of those areas? It could, but chances are it's going to be drawn out because we're shooting air out instead of pushing air in that would then go into the building.
One other thing, you said this is not a big deal. My daughter's pediatrician said that there's nothing that can do if it's in her system, but 20 years down the road, she can end up with cancer.
I don't think anybody said it wasn't a big deal. I'm not going to speak for myself, but
Well, he said that this is mercury, and he said the actual word he said was not a big deal, but he said it's not a big concern.
oh, your pediatrician said that.
No, he said this is not a big concern to have, but he said right now, if the levels were high, there's no medication to give to get rid of it. But say 20 years down the road, you can end up with cancer. And you're saying it's not a big concern.
Mr. Sullivan?
Well, we've quantified our concern as over $3 million in a month. We are very concerned. One thing I want to express is our desire to answer every question you have, and I want to invite you and anyone with any questions to, maybe we can set up a separate email and make sure every question's answered. I think that's important. We're new at this, so I don't think we can answer that question of the cumulative effect. PCBs stay in your system. We know that. We know that the majority of your PCBs that are going to be in everyone's system, everyone has it here.
Yeah, a small portion.
And the majority of it comes from seafood. And the science is something to keep up with, so any questions we will make sure are answered. And so if we can get more detail to you, send us an email or drop a note off to your school, and we'll make sure we look into it. I think that's the least of what we can do.
Absolutely.
They had said children from 12 and up can go in those rooms, but I don't think it's safe because
Well, we're saying, that's why we don't have any of the students
Yeah.
in the three. We're lowering the threshold. The threshold is, recommended threshold by the EPA is 450. We've bumped it for 7th and 8th grade. We've said no more than 300 for any of the students. So we've actually lowered what we feel is acceptable at this point. But I think Mike has a very good point. You can email us at sc@westportschools.org. That goes to every single one of us with all of your questions. And
I just told all my questions.
Okay.
Because I don't feel it's safe for kids to go in there after I spoke to the pediatrician that they can end up with CA. So I don't think anything, even 300 is
I do understand. I have a daughter here as well, so and several of us have children
here. I don't even think the kids should be
here.
here until everything is clean, personally.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
coming up.
Thank you.
I do have a
Go ahead.
short little
Short.
bit, very short. I did, like Bob did get a hold of the EPA today, very briefly, and I did ask a question because the FinCom asked this question as well. If we were to just do what we've done, can we still use the building forever and ever and ever? Her response was, well, if it's a temporary solution and you're looking for more long-term solutions, and we can work with you and, saying, yes, we can accept this for the time being, that's one thing. But to say, here's where we end, I don't think they're going to allow that. Because we do have, and again, I want to be clear and honest and fair. There's still PCBs in the building. Some of it has migrated to the brick and the cement, and we still have some areas where we couldn't get to it in this amount of time. This just 1 month we had. The stairwells still have it. Some areas of the room still have a little bit of it. In places where we would have had to deconstruct part of the structure of the room or the building, and we wouldn't have been able to put it back up. So when I talk to anybody out there who asks me, well, what are we going to do with the building? I keep saying that we need to start looking at more long-term solutions, and some of them are still going to have to include removing the rest of any material that's in here that is above the threshold that the EPA puts out. So it can't be, we just won't have kids in there and just give it back to the town, and the town can do whatever they want with it. The town still is going to have to deal with that. So just wanted to put that out.
Dr. Colley, in your mind, the financial aspect of this is huge on the town. At what point in your mind is that point where you say, something, this madness just has to stop? We can't throw money against the tide anymore because we're just going to keep spending and spending and spending. Where are we going to? Where's your drop dead point? You say, something, we're done with the building. We have to.
To some extent, that was one of the questions that I had to the EPA is, whether you draw the line and keep removing these things till there is no little bit left to be found, because I know that project is going to be, I don't know how many more millions of dollars, because you'd have to take some parts of the walls down, some grinding, some cement, and it's going to be expensive. All the windows would still have to go. So in my mind, I think we need to, at least from the school point of view, we need to start talking to the EPA and the MSBA about alternatives. The MSBA was here. I have an email into them to try to set up a phone conversation to see if they can, because they had people here already looking at the building, and not just this building, but the other buildings. And my request is for another meeting to see what are our alternatives, because they will kind of set some boundaries as to how far afield do we go researching those. But I told them it's got to be soon, because people are going to want some answers, or at least some direction in which to move by the time we go to the town to ask for money, even the money that we just spent now. So I'll put as much pressure as I can on them, and I know I have some friends who can put some pressure on them too.
Mr. Sullivan?
Again, I just want to express what I feel is very important is to get some written directive, because in terms of our evaluating next steps, it's I get it. They're cautious in how they guide us, but we need answers. So, I think we have to express that in writing. And if they say we're not going to give you a written answer, have them put that in the written answer. I think that's going to help us put our hand around any further decisions. So
to some
that's
extent,
my statement on the matter.
Perhaps having them in a meeting and memorializing the meeting in a report may be a more direct way of getting something that they don't seem to be willing to put in writing. Bring them to the meeting, then take notes of the meeting.
Mr. May?
I did actually speak with EPA representative about this project, and again, the project that we undertook to remove sources is not something you submit and get approval for. However, the data, the results that we have, the long-term plan, the long-term solution, that does have to be submitted to EPA for them to approve it. So it is something that Westport needs to consider and think about. EPA is not going to tell you what to do with your building. So you actually have to go to them with a plan. Am I going to demolish the building? Are we going to look at trying to come up with alternative solutions, encapsulating, leaving the work that we've done already with encapsulated materials in the building? Those kind of solutions, you're going to have to tell them what you want. They will respond only to something in writing to them, specifically with a question. So we can certainly look at that, but that's essentially conversations we have had with EPA. They are definitely interested in studying the data because of the amount of material removed and the amount of air sampling that was done here. It's a unique project in that, and they are looking for that data. and we will be preparing the reports to do that. But a big part of that is the solution, the long-term, that Westport actually needs to make some decisions about.
And I don't want to keep drawing this out, but what I'm gathering is it's unique in the sense of we responded, we reacted, and we've attempted to remediate quickly. And that's not the status quo in most cases. I think people wonder what they're going to do. They don't react to the reports. And is that why they're excited about getting our source data and evaluating?
The scope as well.
I think the scope and magnitude, initially the reaction in terms of, again, PCBs is fairly new. If anybody's not familiar, it's only been on the horizon here in terms of a known contaminant for the last couple of years in terms of widespread knowledge. So EPA is still studying this, and they're going to be studying this for the next 3-4 years to make some decisions. They may change their rules and regulations based on what's happening now. And Westport's data certainly is of interest to them because of the amount of PCBs here, the significant amount in the air that we found, and the approach that we took was somewhat unique. Other school systems have tried to do limited removal or enclosure, temporary type of things, where we actually did a large source removal project in a very short amount of time and got good results for the majority of this building. So they are definitely interested, and hopefully they will work with us to move forward.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
On to informational agenda item C, recognition of donation from Lee's Market to the workers at the Westport Middle School.
This one, we don't have a lot of information because it didn't come through us. Basically, during the part of the construction or remediation phase, if you will, Lee's Market did contact us. They wanted to know if they could provide some refreshment because it was some of the worst, hottest days of the summer that the people were in here basically drenched in sweat. And I know they provided some food, some drinks, and they worked through the Triumvirate and Fuss and O'Neill foreman to distribute this stuff. So I don't know how much. I just wanted to recognize that they knew the guys were here working, and they wanted to do something for them. And trust me, I know it was very much appreciated, but we didn't get any, the donation didn't come directly to us, went directly to the workers, and I just want to say thank you.
I was here later on that day that they did eat, and I just need to make a statement. The staff that we had on the premises, the janitorial staff, was not included in any of that, and I think we need to at least do something for them because they worked just as hard as Fuss and O'Neill and Triumvirate, and they were kind of hurt that everyone else was eating, and they were slaving away in the same hot building, and no one recognized them, so they did a great job here.
Thank you.
I didn't know they got excluded.
Yeah, they had nothing.
I
don't think Lee, it was.
Yeah.
I don't think it was on purpose of Lee's. They came to the foreman, and the foreman took care of their men,
Right.
and our men were pretty much left high and dry. So.
Yeah, everybody that has worked very, very hard. And thank you to Lee's Market. We're very lucky to have them in our community. They are wonderful to the school, to the community, all across the board. And certainly the custodial staff here was, I'm sure, not cited intentionally.
No.
On to Mrs. Tudelo, the NEASC update.
Good evening. We have been informed by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges that our decennial visit will take place from March 10th through March 13th, 2013. So this is the year for us to officially begin our self-study. We have been working on those 7 standards right along. And on October 7th, a member from the NEASC Commission will be visiting the high school. That's our half-day professional development day. There will be several meetings on that day, but the first one at around 11:30 in the morning will be a meeting with the faculty and staff, and school board members are invited to attend. That will be an overview of the process and what you can expect in terms of preparing for it and what the feedback will be from that report. Once that visit has taken place, I will be ordering the mandatory surveys that will be mailed from Endicott College to all parents, students, and staff, and that will be an opinion survey on areas of all high schools, but particularly that focus on those 7 standards of accreditation. And then once we get those surveys back, the results of the surveys, and we have the information from our own self-study, we will be developing a list of our strengths and critical needs, and some action plans based upon those.
Any questions? Anybody? Can you get on that date again?
It's October 7th, it's a Friday. It's a half-day. The afternoon is professional development, and at about 11:30, that will be the meeting with the entire staff. That will last for about 1 hour, and that's the meeting that parents, students, and school board members are invited to attend.
Thank you. Dr. Colley, do you have anything to add to that?
No, all I can say is we have at least 2 accreditations going on simultaneously. The next time I'll have Mrs. Pacetto talk a little bit about the Macomber accreditation, but I figured we had already started with the high school. I know they'd had meetings just before school started, so I wanted her to give us an update.
Anybody else? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Transportation update. How'd that go?
Oh, it was a great week. Dr. Colley had asked me to give a little bit of a review of last week for transportation. It was an extremely trying week. I will not even lie to you. We had many pass-bys.
Sorry about
You just
that.
don't want to listen
There
to me,
you
do
go.
you, Eric?
We had many pass-bys. We're still in the process of practicing getting the new bus company, Emeralds, on board with their new drivers. Our seasoned drivers have had no problem whatsoever, but they still fall in line with the new bus drivers who are still learning the routes. We have had parent complaints because we have a new bus company. We have had changes. We've got new staff at some of our schools, so I think it's just been a very trying week. Emeralds has worked very well in trying to, every little issue that comes up, they're trying to work with us. Many things that they have discussed were bus stops. They think that a lot of the traveling that was done with the prior company could be eliminated by having designated bus stops, which would save money in the long run with gas, with fuel, with mileage, which once the routing system is up, I'm hoping that next year we can probably drop down to maybe even, lose about 4 routes in the process. This year, we started way too late with the middle school issue going on, not knowing when they were starting, not knowing if they were going into other schools. And then in the last minute, the week before school starting, we found out that the routes that Emeralds were given were routes from 3 years ago. So the week before school started, myself and Helena were redoing every bus route in some type of order so that the new drivers could get an idea of where they were going. Over the next 2 weeks, I plan to get on every bus to ride the buses. First, I'm going to start with elementary and math riding the end of the day because a lot of our parents are complaining that the children aren't getting home till like 4:30, which the first week they weren't getting home till 5:15. So I feel that we've come a little ways with that. Elementary school, the looping has been a little bit off. The first few days, the bus company didn't realize we were in a looping. We told them the looping. A lot of it is the new drivers that kind of have no idea what the routine was, what the system was. So it's been trying. It's been trying. They've come a long way. We're still working out some little glitches along the way of problems, issues, where I'm on the phone with them from sometimes 5:45 in the morning till 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. This week has been much better. A lot of people are not happy that we have changed bus companies because there have been a lot of, before in the past, Tremblay's would stop at a family's house, they would wait 5 minutes, they'd see the child getting ready in the house, the mother would be saying, wait 1 minute. So almost every stop, Tremblay's was stopping. And trust me, as a parent, I know that that's a great thing when you have your child that, doesn't want to break away from something or has some other reason why they're not making it to the bus, but now, we've saved money on this contract and we have them for 3 years and we have to make it work with them, but with us, and still putting safety as the number one issue. So safety issues were being discussed. We're talking about bullying with them. Liz Harrington over at the Macomber School is going to run a bullying class with them to make sure that all of the Emerald bus drivers are trained for bullying. We're trying to go over a procedure.
Anti-bullying.
And who?
They're trained in anti-bullying
Oh,
techniques.
anti-bullying, bullying,
Train them how to
anti-bullying.
Just wanted to make sure.
I was close. The other thing that we're trying to get from them is their policy. So if we have any type of transportation issues and a driver is written up for whatever reason, you know, anything that should not be happening, that's hazardous, that could be causing safety issues, they're going to give us a copy of their policy letting us know what their procedure is on, you know, they're written up, they're given a verbal warning, then they're written up, and then they're suspended from their bus until whatnot. So I spoke to them today. Last Friday, Dr. Condon and myself and Helena Nebbs, we sat down with two of the people from Amaralls to discuss last week's issues, and I'm usually there every day to try to just go over as many issues as we can discuss. They have a great camera on there. Their digital camera system is tremendous there. It shows you the miles that the bus is going. It shows you if their foot is on the brake. It shows you if the arm is up. It shows you if their brake lights are still going. It shows you when the brake is released from the bus. You can see the child crossing the front of the bus, which is something we didn't have with Tremblay's. We saw the child only getting off the bus. We can see the full range of the child getting off the bus and crossing. That's another thing that happens now on some of our streets, because I've tried to cut down on them coming back and forth on roads. We are allowing right now for the students to cross the street. We are also, after speaking with Amaralls, they want parents to be there for K through 4 to let them know they need to be at that bus stop to receive their child. So in saying all of that, after Friday, we sent home a memo from K through 12. The memo was the same exact memo, but for K through 4, we've asked them to make sure they have a sign sheet that they need to say what adults have authorization to receive their child off the bus, stating that we have a new bus company, because some people didn't know we had a new bus company. Changes were a huge thing. Dartmouth Public Schools has 30 buses on the road. In one day, they had 14 bus changes. Westport has 17 buses on the road. We had 80 bus changes in one day. So that is going to take, what those changes are, I know Mike's looking at me, what those changes are parents calling, not calling, but filling out the form saying, my child's not going to daycare today, it's the first week of kindergarten, I would like to be home and get the child off the bus. The next time it's, the grandmother's going to be going, but I need her to go to the grandmother's house and not my house. Or she's going to a friend's house, which that we've done away with totally, but I might not know if it's happening and people are lying about it. But fact being is, with 84 changes in one day, takes a full-time person to maintain those changes. And that's coming from 4 different schools. When you have 30 routes in Dartmouth and they're only getting 14 changes, and they can run their routes better than our little 17, that has been probably the biggest challenge right now. So in that letter that went home to parents, it was to discuss that. It was to discuss adults. If a different adult's going to be there to receive your child, they're going to need to have an ID so that we're not just dropping the child to anyone. If the school bus needs to go back to the school because there is no one there to receive that child, after the second time, that child will lose 2 days' worth of transportation, because before in the past, again, Tremblay's would go by sometimes 2 and 3 times. If they weren't there the first time, they would do their route, come back again, try to see if they could drop the child off. They weren't there again, they might do a different direction, then go back. So that was happening in the past also. So we tried to put that in here to try to find a way to, hopefully stop it so that's not happening. The bus cannot deliver the students to home, they're going back to their appropriate schools. We also, normally we enforce bus passes for the high school starting this Monday, but because our routes were a little off, we're holding it off until next Monday. So every student in the system was given one of these, was sent home a notice like this today, just to kind of give everybody a little more information and to let them know. I've tried to put my name in as much. I've been working with all of the principals, the secretaries, everyone, trying to keep everybody as informed, trying to handle every problem that comes across the table on, a daily basis. And, it's a process. Amaralls is trying to work with us. We're, trying to do the best we can.
Yeah. What age, you say an adult at home, some kids that may be in high school, are they able to accept their younger brother or sister off the bus, or in middle school? Like, what age are you saying Nope, you're just too young.
Well, we do have some 7th and 8th graders that the parents have requested that their 7th or 8th grader be able to take them off the bus. As long as a parent is approving that, I'm asking them to put their child's name and listed it's a middle school child or a high school child, that they give authorization
Okay.
for that student to go off to that, middle school student or high school student. So we have addressed that issue also.
So I can see that
Right,
it
I
happens
had
in
a
my
call
house,
today, right.
so.
Me too.
That's true.
Any other questions, comments?
Michelle,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I didn't
My
see that.
6-year-old ended up on a bus to Philadelphia. Do you know
Did he make it home? Did he make it
hasn't
home?
come back.
And that's all you should care about.
I think you did a
Oh,
great
he
job
didn't
this
have a
week.
question. I thought he
Yeah,
had a question.
he's just being fresh.
Just trying to light things up a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
You did a great job. I know you
Thank you.
received
Thank
a
you.
lot of phone calls this week, and I can't imagine how you're still standing today, so.
All the
thank you.
staff helped.
You do
Elena
a wonderful
Neves,
job with the
working together with
cafeteria going
everyone.
on and that stuff, and all the staff that you have there. I think you've done a
Thank
great
you.
job.
I need to give a big thank you to my middle school staff, because in the midst of all that rain last week, they were running, not me, but they were running back and forth
With food.
with bagged lunches, pouring rain,
Yeah.
trying to get here to make sure that we're on a timely fashion to keep up with Mr. Seminello and the kids. So, it's definitely a staff effort
Thank
to
you.
get where we are,
You
so thank
and
you.
all the people that help you have done a wonderful
Are
job.
they still getting their
so-
pizza on Fridays?
Well,
Oh, yeah, what are
pizza
they gonna
next
do?
Friday, depending on where we are
That's a
next
big
Friday.
deal.
That's huge.
Pizza,
Make me
we might
happy.
try to have it happen.
Okay.
We might try to see if Papa Gino's will let us borrow their warmers, their bags that they come in.
Beautiful.
The problem we might have with it, normally we serve salad with that, so instead, the kids are getting a lot of carrot sticks and celery sticks. It might be what they get in place of salad, but we're trying to
They'll
give
be
them
happy
the
with
same.
pizza.
I think it'll give them a good
Yeah.
morale boost to
Right,
have
so
some
I
pizza
think we're
and
going
have
to
some
try
fun
to
with
do
it.
it, and just, Papa
Maybe we'll
Gino's,
have
I'm sure, will let
maybe
us
ice
borrow
cream
their
sandwiches
warmers.
for them or
Great.
something, I don't know.
Fabulous.
That's on our list.
Thank you.
We can return their warmers after we're
Yeah.
done with.
Okay, on to
Good idea.
FY11 budget review. Dr. Colley?
What you have in front of you is literally just the summer. It doesn't include any of the big-ticket items from the cleaning of the middle school. Those will probably, you start to see them in September. We are asking the town how they want us to account for these, because again, we're going to be spending in deficit very soon here. At least some lines will go into deficit. I do want to call your attention to one line, which is right on the second page under general fund salaries. You have already a $16,000 deficit. It's not really a $16,000 deficit. Is that we hadn't allocated the accreditation monies that we had already talked about in the spring when we were setting the budget. So that will be a transfer. It's going to come from the line in the front where you have teachers, not that one. My eyes are getting real blurry. It's from the teacher professional development. We added some additional, no, I got contacts. The teacher professional development line actually has the additional money we put in for accreditation, so we need to move it to the professional development line. We found out there is no line in the accounting system that we could use to call it accreditation, so we'll have to keep our own tally of what we're spending on accreditation, which was something we wanted to do for the future, so when we get the next round, we have some historical data about that. Other than that, there's not a lot that has been spent, other than in a lot of the supplies and material lines. Those have been hit pretty hard because teachers try to get their stuff early in the year. The middle school hasn't spent this much yet, partly because we're waiting to open the building. People didn't want to have a lot of deliveries and materials here while we were trying to figure out how to open the building, so I'm sure I'll see those coming in. And again, I think in the next couple of months, we'll start to see those lines getting hit. It'll probably be in the maintenance and those personnel lines that deal with consultant fees, because basically Triumvirate and Fuss and O'Neill are considered consultants. So you will see those lines skyrocket until we try to figure out what the town will do for us. I did get a chance to take a look at closing out last year's numbers for the revolving accounts. And again, because they're revolving, you never really close them, you just try to take a snapshot. Two things I did notice. One is there's a little extra money this year that went into the athletics, but I don't want to deceive anybody. The only reason why that happened is because towards the end of the year, we didn't finish paying out the athletic director here at the middle school because she took another position. So I have allowed Mr. Donovan to make a couple of purchases for things that I normally wouldn't have allowed, because if you go to the breakout of what we spent in sports last year, we're still going to be literally either breaking even or being a little under, so we would have to fund some of that out of our budget. So in case people think there's a lot of money left in there, there really isn't. That was just a one-time deal that, just so happened that it hit that time of the year. The other one I wanted to point out is the school lunch. If you see, there was a little star that says in FY10, we brought in about $679,000. This past year, we only brought in about $656,000. That's on the coming in side. The difference, we try to figure out what was going on, and the difference is basically a matter of logistics. We have about 50 less kids in the district, and many of them were eating lunches, and so since they're not here, that means over the whole 180 days that we're buying lunches, we're making less money. And again, we're trying to keep the $100,000 in there. We did have to use some of it to purchase some stuff over the summer, but one of the warmers, I think that's right, that died. And it wasn't a lot, but in the conversation that we had, the issue is we have some really, really old equipment. And when we start looking around for how much the replacement of that equipment was, this is industrial equipment that could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So I didn't want to go raid that line. So that pocket is still there, in case anybody wants to know what the money is about.
Two questions, Dr. Colley. That extra money in the sports,
yes,
is Mr. Donovan attempting to get mats? Because we weren't able to buy those when we had that deadline. Is that one of his concerns, the mats on the walls?
It's nowhere near enough to buy any amount of mats, number one. Number two, we still are under the impression that the fire are going to hold us to a very high standard as to what those mats are.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you that the price tag on those is very, very steep.
And the
I mean,
second-
we could try to build it into the budget for next year and actually get the quotes and see if
I was going to suggest holding off on, I know it was a big item before, but we don't even know what we're doing with the school, and I can't see buying mats tailor-made for our walls if we're not going to be here, so.
True.
And the other item, I see $10,664.29. Is that what we're turning over in free cash to the town?
Oh, that's the next piece. Do you want to go to that?
Oh, no, I actually, if we haven't got to it yet, I thought we were doing all the encumbrances. I'll yield to Michael.
That's G.
Those are
Okay.
this year's encumbrances.
Just before we go
Yep.
to
Yeah, go ahead.
looking at the athletic budget, noticing that there's a projection, spring sports, projected expenses. Is he not closed out those, if I'm reading it right? Total payroll expenses are projected for spring sports, and this is from last spring? So we just have some updating to do?
If you take a look at the 630 that has the red on it, this was the projected, this is the actual, the red one, where she was showing exactly where the monies came and went. So where you look at the FY11 athletic revolving budget balance was $7,384.
So I should cross out projected?
Is that
No,
still
it's still
projected on this one?
See, this is the red one.
No, I know what he's saying.
No, but
Yeah,
if
there's a
it's not
couple of
projected,
places
I
where it
should-
says projected, that should not be there.
So
The red one
So
is
these
an
are two
actual.
comparative,
Right, the red one is the actual.
the red one is, okay, so that's the one I'll cross out projected. Thank you. Second,
Thank you for pointing that out.
just to put my hand around, you made some comments in terms of what it looks like now. This is a line item budget, but it's a comment. I don't think we need to answer it today. But we talked about this interim financial report, the $3 million expenditure, and the impact on this budget, and we're going to see it showing up on the cash flows here, which is what this report is. But can we start a planning process where we come up with, really, we have two scenarios. There's A and B. A is that we pass a bond, and I think we need to start that process. I'm sure FinCom probably entered into that last night in terms of
Yep.
selectmen approval, town meeting, ballot question. We're into January anyways, I think.
When I talked to the FinCom last night, they have verbally gotten from the selectmen that they're thinking of a November town meeting. So really, we don't have a timeline until they set that. What I said to them is, we can deal with the, hopefully by then, this whole project will be finished, so we'll have some real numbers to give to them. Other than maybe the couple of rounds of testing that we'll have in the spring. My concern is, as you said, there's two options here, is to get money from the town in a bond. I did talk to Melissa, who worked with the town accountant and the treasurer, and we calculated that we will start to see cash flow issues by February, late February, like the second payroll of February. So that's where we're going to be going. We can't run the school at that point, because if you look at a school district, you have pretty much all the materials and supplies get bought early in the year. Then each month you spend almost a tenth of your budget from September down to June, because a large part of your budget is just people. So if we've already spent the little bits that we have in supplies, materials, those sundry items, and then each month you start using your payroll, but you already took $3 million out of a $15 million budget, those last few months in the spring, you honestly don't have cash. The question they had, which is probably your part B, is what would you do if the town doesn't give you the $3 million?
And that's my follow-up. I don't think, we certainly can't wait till February to visit that. We need to be prepared to present that in November, based on what you just let us know. So we have to start to look at that today. If the bond doesn't pass,
Well, I did some rough calculations, and if you take $3 million and the bond question foreseeably wouldn't come perhaps till December. If we have a town meeting in November, I can see the earliest they would schedule a bond question would be in December. That means by December, I've spent pretty much, half my budget. So taking $3 million, taking it out of what's left of the budget would mean the equivalent of about 125 staff.
and to get to the ballot in November, we have to have a presentation to convince the town why we need that ballot question to pass a town meeting. So what I'm saying is we have to schedule this going forward between the next 60 days so that we can share it with the community. That if it doesn't pass, we're $3 million plus reductions, and this is where it's going to come from. So I look forward to having that discussion.
And I was coming to that part because one of my suggestions is to have a workshop on just that, like we usually do when we're talking about budgets. It's not necessarily a place where we're going to make recommendations or take votes, but it's a time to have a really hard discussion of what happens if. Because I can give you some suggestions of where to cut $3 million, but I am sure nobody's going to like it. It's worse than anything anybody's ever seen. In fact, one of the things I plan to do is talk to Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials to find out if this has ever happened to anybody and what are the ramifications. Is there any protection in the law to keep the schools open when you don't have enough personnel or money to pay payroll? That is a question. I went back through the archives in the website for MASBO. I did not encounter anything close to this.
On that positive note, anybody else have anything else to say? I'd just like to say, our cuts that we had previously, that was crippling. I can't even imagine any of this. So, let's get that workshop scheduled as well as, start deciding how we're going to move forward on this.
One of the things we may want to consider, one is the workshop. The other one is to ask the selectmen to please try to figure out when they're going to have that meeting so we can work backwards from there as to what our timeline's going to look like and, get out there. Because usually I go to places like the Romeos, Business to Business, other organizations like that to spread the word. And I would like to know so that I can call those organizations and say, hey, would you put me on your agenda? And try to plan when to go in, because usually the closer to town meeting, the better.
Tony?
Dr. Colley, the FinCom told you that, what would you do if we lost $3 million out of our budget? I mean, they're putting that whole $3 million on the school side of the town budget?
It wasn't so much like that, actually. It was a good conversation in the fact that they basically said, we wouldn't wish this on anybody. So, but they did ask the question, obviously, because last night we had the ballot question for the paving the parking lots and taking care of the high school electrical unit in the back of the auditorium that did not pass. And I think they were reacting to, comments that were made by people coming to vote, that they had gone to vote, and they had heard people talking about it. And there is, amongst them, a certain level of fear that people will just say, well, let it come out of somewhere else. But nobody, I think what Mr. Sullivan is saying, nobody wants to face where the somewhere else is, because there really isn't any somewhere else to go other than to cripple, the operations of the school or the town for that matter. It's not, we don't have a huge budget, and without an influx of capital, town or the school will run into a fiscal crisis with cash flow.
The rainy day fund is about $600,000.
Yeah, there's
well under $1 million, so they don't have the money, even if they wanted to give it to us, and I think that's why so it sounds like we've got a plan and looking forward to it.
Okay. On to the end of the year transfers, balances, and encumbrances.
This was a question that came up during the summer a couple of times. We did run the numbers. The town will be getting back money this year. We will be giving them about 17,771. That's the one that you have. I think it came out with highlights on it. That'll go straight to the general fund so they can use it as free cash. We also worked out through the encumbrances. There's an additional almost $12,000 that we did not use at the end of the year that we expected to use. Some of the work, for example, in the tennis courts came out of this year's budget instead of last year's because they got held up and they couldn't finish the courts. So some of the work got done before July 1st, some of it got done after, so we split some of that bill. that money, we had an interesting conversation with the accountants, and the accountants that do our audit basically said, well, if the town were to trust your numbers and they wanted to declare it as surplus, they could use it. I don't know how the town will feel about doing that before we do the audit, and that's usually why we have waited till the spring town meeting to turn it back, because usually we have the audit in the fall, and after the audit, we say, okay, we can certify to the town, because it's our books. The auditors come look at our books, and we give it back to the town. Hey, the auditors came, our numbers are good. We've, not going to say never, but at least as long as Melissa's been here, we've never had a finding in the sense of, you know, this money was unaccounted for, the numbers that you gave to the town were not good. Could the town trust it? Yes. Will they? I don't know. So they can do it on their end. We can't just simply send it to them. They obviously already have these numbers. So if they want to use that, you know, the total is about almost $30,000 back to the town for this year. Basically based on last year.
Any questions?
Actually, one quick
Eric?
one. Only because I asked a question about 2 weeks ago about iPads, and I was told we did not buy any. And I see here a line item for $1565
Right.
on FY11 General Ed encumbrances, 315. Are you on the same sheet?
Yes. There were a couple of iPads that were bought. I actually got one because I've been traveling a lot to conferences. Owned by the district. The other one went to the special ed department because they're using it to work with kids. And
so that's for two of them? Okay.
Yeah, they're about $600 a piece.
Yeah.
What ended up happening at that time is what we presented to the school committee was tablets. Wasn't necessarily iPads. We did have HP in here, and they showed us their new tablets, and it looked great because it would run Flash Player, which iPads don't do. So we were trying to get them to come up with a price, and they kept telling us, well, we're not sure. These are pre-production models we're showing you, which scared the bejesus out of us. And sure enough, by the time summer came around, they're not doing those. So it was a good thing we didn't go down that road. So I have to give credit to Mrs. Lewis, who decided not to do that. There is some money in this year's budget if we want to pursue that. One of the suggestions was for the school committee to have quick access to information while they're sitting here, like I've done it on my phone, and I do it on my iPad as well.
I was actually looking more towards, and I see the Ms. Harkins here, the special ed department. I know there's a program for kids with autism to get iPads for $199 rather than paying the $600. Are we able to take advantage of that for our, I know it's usually an individual family that applies for that. Are we able to take advantage of that so we can, because I've seen at least 3 or 4 kids with autism, and it's amazing what they can, how they're learning on iPads, or any device, whether it's a HP or whatever the device may be, but are we able to take advantage of that at all?
We looked into it last year when we did the...
Sorry. I know the people at home always complain that we can't be heard, so.
We did look into that last year when we did there's a certain amount of money that's allocated for that, and the money, once they advertised it, was gone in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was.
It's a quick turnaround.
So we can, if you see...
Is it a yearly type of thing that?
I'm not sure, we can look at it again. We have, as you know, some very good speech therapists who are working now, and they're always looking for that. And we have Christine Rossett, who is certified in technology, so assistive technology, so they're always looking for things.
Those were one of them went to one of the ladies.
So one of them went to them.
And they had a couple earlier in the year that we got us, right.
Our money to purchase them, so the speech therapists each have one, so that they can use.
Now, do we have extra little monies for them to be able to purchase either through the the App Store.
You want to explain that part?
Because they need to purchase the actual programs that the kids are manipulating,
It's
so.
been interesting.
Okay. Good, thank you.
The issue is the iTunes accounts are a little bit more difficult because it's basically, it's like getting a credit card.
Yeah.
So we've been playing with it, trying to find a way that the auditors will say, hey, you're incurring credit that you shouldn't. So we've been pretty tight with it. It's a lot of them are free. If there's anything we need to buy, basically what I've said is I'd rather put it like on my credit card and get reimbursed because at least we can track it, but it's not.
Could you go through a revolving account for that?
Could we go through a revolving account for that? Problem is,
I mean, other school districts have to have had this problem and how they've done it to buy programs for the kids to.
believe it or not, there's school districts out there, because I just saw a presentation last spring, that have credit cards for the district. The problem is, you got to get bonded, who gets access to the credit card. You have to get the town to agree to it, because it's actually, leverage for the town as well. I haven't pursued it here. We had them on the Vineyard. After I left, they actually closed them out. Not that there was anything ever wrong with it, but the new person that took off after me didn't want to deal with the responsibility of who had the cards. The revolving account, the problem is they're specific to the program. So the only programs that we could do something like that would affect special ed, for example, would be the early childhood. And we've already slated the money coming into that to pay for staff. So it would be like stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
Okay, just curious.
I'm just going to throw something out. I'm not sure I'm totally in tune with that conversation, but would a credit card that could only be preloaded with cash, in other words, like a debit card, could that act as the device?
No, because the issue is how do you say what the expenditure was for? See, on a public expenditure accounting process, you have to show what you spent it on and that you had permission to spend it on that ahead of the spending. So it's a stretch. It's a stretch because you're putting money aside, but then you're spending it later. So when the bill comes for the credit card, may not be when you actually spent the money. See, if I put it on my credit card, I have to wait till I get my statement, meaning it's already been paid. And I pay taxes, so I eat that, but usually it's not that big. So if a staff person says, hey, I really need this program, and the only way to get it is if we go through here, we've done a few of those. They're not very expensive, so it's kind of nice. And that's one of the things I like about the iPads is a lot of stuff coming out specifically for education, a lot of it free. So, but there's competing technologies out there, so we haven't committed to anything yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on encumbrances? On to the action agenda, approval of field trip, Wesco High School, Vienna, Venice, and Paris, April 2013, during spring vacation. I'd like to go.
Everybody has seen this, has said the same thing, including some of us here. Last year, the students had a wonderful trip, kind of the same outfit. I think it's planning it, so I would like to recommend, I think they only miss one day, correct? The day before vacation, traveling down to get on the plane and get off.
What's your suggestion, Mike?
Well,
Is it a good one? Does it have
Well,
to be-
my concern with the trip, and I'm one of 5 people, is with the pending high level of security that's going on now, do we want to wait for that report to come out of Homeland Security before we get the balls rolling on this trip? I know it's been an ongoing dilemma for 10 years, and my concern, whether it be today or a month from now, is going to be the potential risk of international travel for our students. So I just don't know if that's been looked at as, they've gone before, there were no problems. I just know there's still this high alert out there. And, will it affect the cost of the trip or the logistics? Maybe not, I don't know. So maybe they can go ahead with it, but...
The cost of the trip really is borne by the parents who want to participate. There is the issue of insurance, and if you've planned travel before, the sooner you book it, the less expensive it is. I don't know what Arlen's been told in terms of when the prices may change. I don't know if she's got a window of opportunity here.
I was going to piggyback on that and ask about travel insurance. Is that a part of the package that?
I believe it has. It's built in.
And does that cover
national emergencies?
Well, I mean, maybe something as simple as just a bump up in the threat level. Would our students be able to opt out after they've paid and get their money back based on some contingency like that?
This does say the all-inclusive insurance on this one.
I don't know specifically if that's covered. We can ask the insurance company. Because sometimes, I've purchased insurance for traveling, and usually, if you read it, it's if they cannot continue the trip. That's one piece of the insurance. The other one is if a government closes the borders, whether it's ours or theirs. If it's just a threat level, chances are it doesn't get covered. It just, that's word to the wise. If you want to go, here's the situation. But unless they actually close it, I don't think it gets reimbursed.
Does anybody have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to approval of policies, policy BEA. Is there any questions on this one? Or a motion to approve?
I have a question.
Mike?
It's not a question, it's a statement.
That's fine.
I'm not in favor of changing any policy and adding the word possibility, just based on my understanding of what policy is and the definition of policy. If policies aren't always adhered to, but when you start putting a provision for a possibility, personally, I have a problem with that becoming part of the policy. So I would urge reconsideration of BEE and BEDB based on those inclusions. Perhaps suggest to go back to the policy committee for reworking.
Any other comments?
I think the word possible there is going above and beyond the legal requirements which are there and which would obviously have to be met. And while I think I agree in principle with Mr. Sullivan, I think in this particular case, that's throwing that in there as just a good faith effort to get information out as soon as possible beyond the legal requirements.
I wasn't talking about the legal requirement of the policy, but the definition of why we have policy. I'm looking for 3 business days prior to the meeting. I like the fact that if we can get it on the weekend, because that's when we all have time to look at our packets, that 48 hours. I just, the possibility says it's okay to be here when we get here, and I'm well heard on that matter, so I'm looking forward to that reconsideration, if I'll make that in the form of a motion.
It actually says no later than 48 hours, so not necessarily when we get here. Mike, do you have a motion to that?
To remove,
You just said you had a motion. What's your motion?
Yeah, no, my motion is to refer it back to the policy committee.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
No. That was
No.
Tony, no.
2-3.
No, no, yes, yes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On to BEDB. Is there any discussion on this before?
Well, Mike, wait a minute.
BEDB.
Oh, I thought we were doing them
I'm going
together.
in order
Yeah.
of,
No, I thought we did those together. No, that's fine.
no, I didn't.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? BEDBE. Okay. I just would like to comment on why this was discussed in the policy. I think we just want to make sure that school committee follows open meeting laws, making sure that items that are brought up are understood that they're requests to put on the agenda and not necessarily open for full discussion. I think more to make sure we're following open meeting law, and I think that was just the suggestion of the group. So I just follow up on that one. Is there any other comments or motion to?
Well, do you want to wait until the discussion, or do you want me to just make a comment on it?
Either way.
Student representative, are we even going to have one this year?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do we have one?
Mrs.
Met
Duval?
yet, have they?
They have not met yet.
Okay.
Better idea by the end of
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just, my question is, this is not the only opportunity to offer new business. In other words, we don't have a deadline now of the meeting previous. So if, as the week goes on, if we have new business that we want to
Absolutely.
put on the agenda,
This is only bringing up agenda items that particular night for discussion. It's just strictly to make sure, to clarify that this is for, not a new agenda item for that particular night, that it's a request for a future night. It doesn't preclude sending emails or making requests in any other. It was just a simple word change.
so if after tonight's meeting, we have other new agenda items.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be shut down because we didn't have it tonight.
No, it's not. No, this is,
That's fine.
it's really just a clarification.
Just a word.
Yep. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That was this one.
That was BE.
Excuse me,
Did we just do that twice?
you did it twice.
I
So
thought we
you
might
have
have.
a motion
I
from-
think I made the motion
You made a
originally.
And then
motion
Tony
and Tony seconded, so, okay.
We did, because we opened it up for discussion. It's been a long day, Karen, I'm sorry. See, you're quick on the draw. Keep me in line.
Not getting anything by her.
No, that was a test for you. All right, so do we need to revote, or are we good?
No, we're, no.
Okay. Policy CCC, staffing formulas and ratios. Is there
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The remainder of the red line, section C, all these people leaving, it's fun stuff.
What's remaining?
The section C. The remaining section of C. So it would be C.
Motion approved CCC and CGC.
We just did CCC.
We just
Yeah,
did
we did
CCC, now we're on
Starting from
CGC.
CGC.
Motion to approve CGC.
And it goes all the way through.
I'm just making a motion to approve CGC because
Okay,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
CGC.
Okay, so,
motion to
That
approve,
was just for,
motion to approve CGD.
oh,
that was just
Slow down,
for,
slow down.
so we're gonna go one by one?
Or you want to do the whole,
No, I have one I want to discuss.
He has something he wants to
Okay.
bring up, so.
Okay, well,
Next
We'll
one?
go through.
can we just back up a minute?
Yep, that
Because I
was
thought we
C,
were
that
going-
was CGC.
Okay, number 5, I'm sorry, number 5, we did this, we did 4, which was CCC.
Yep, and we just
Okay,
approved
now we-
CGC.
CGC.
That's right.
Sorry about that. Okay, let me do it this way then, motion. Okay, so who actually did the motion for CGC?
Mike did.
Okay.
seconded by
I
And who
second.
seconded it?
Tony
Oh, Tony
seconded.
did. I know it came down to
Okay,
that.
and,
It was unanimous,
okay.
and
Yeah, I think
you
we
just
can
make a
do it
motion
right
for
on
CGD, correct?
Okay.
And Mike made that motion, and Eric, did you second that?
No, I thought Jim had, but I'll second it if,
Okay,
whichever.
That's good.
and that's CGD.
This is CGD.
Okay.
Any discussion on CGD? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, CH. Which one do you want to discuss?
Okay, I thought the line, is the line through the A, the CHA?
B.
Okay, I thought that was becoming part of CH, so that's, well, we can discuss both CH and CHA, in that my concerns are similar. These policies address a change in the way we implement policies, and I'm comfortable suggesting that we postpone that till the next meeting.
Is that a motion?
So
That's a
you're doing
motion.
both of these?
Motion is to
CH?
postpone CH and CHA.
Are you postponing or recommending they go back to the policy subcommittee? You're just postponing?
Right now, I'm just recommending postponing.
Okay,
Correct.
so the motion is to postpone CH and CHA. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion based on agenda items and executive. I believe it would be, make good sense to postpone this policy till the next session,
Okay.
the school committee meeting.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So CH and CHA are postponed. CH, is there any others that you have discussion
Motion to
with?
approve CHC and CHCA.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Who seconded?
Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? CHCAE. You with us, Karen? I'm just going in order of my packet.
Okay, we're at CHCA-E.
That's right. Handbook of handbooks and directives, this has not changed at all.
Yeah, it's the exact same. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All
That's
those,
this one.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That was it. Yes,
CHD. Is there a motion to approve this one?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to postpone CHD, CHI, CJ,
Wait. I don't have,
CHI,
I don't have a CHI. I have CI,
CI.
CI,
CHD, CI,
and CJ.
and CJ. Motion to postpone CHD, CI, and CJ. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Again, I'm just urging that we hold off further discussion or approval on these policies till our next meeting.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? CK. Is there a motion to approve? This one has not changed.
So moved.
Second? Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? CL,
I'll make a motion to postpone approval of CL and CLR.
is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
And I urge the postponement of these policies pending some executive discussions and take it up at the next meeting.
All those in favor? Is there any discussion? Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? CLE, the removal of CLE.
Motion to remove CLE?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And CM. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. C. Policy FCA.
No change to this, correct?
No?
So moved.
Second.
Wait a minute. Eric, FCA. What?
We're doing,
FCA.
just FCA?
I went to number 6 on the action agenda. FCA.
Okay, so Eric, motion,
Yes.
second?
Jim.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the balance of this F policies that are in front of us, all affecting facilities, and, well, my motion is to approve the remaining F policies that we have in our...
Second.
Any discussion?
All related to facilities and management of facilities. It's was the suggestion at the policy committee that were prepared by the superintendent with his guidance and the way, updating them to the way things are done. So it makes sense to approve them.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? E. Is there a motion to approve the red line sections of E?
So moved.
Is there a second?
All of Section E, is that what you're doing?
I'm doing
Okay.
all of section E unless there's something
Nope.
you'd like to pull out.
The pieces that are here, there's part of
Yeah.
Section E that's still under review.
The section that's...
Section that's...
Okay.
So I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of section E that we have here, the red line section?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to the approval of the minutes for Tuesday, August 9th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
That was, were you doing August 9th?
Yes.
And that was seconded by Tony?
Yes.
He was absent, though.
Oh, he
I'll
was.
take the second
you
on
were
that.
You were not here, Tony. So Eric's...
I'll second that.
Eric second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm aye.
He's an aye.
It's unanimous.
Approval of the minutes on Tuesday, August 30th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Somewhere in here I have correspondence.
You have a shutter?
There's some school magazines in here, if anybody wants to take a look at these. Parking supplies. Some deals. I think we all got this Fall River for a Healthier Committee. Tony will deal with this one at the next meeting.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. School Building Authority, one of these was directed at Mr. Sproulette as well. and a couple more school things. Is there any new business agenda?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
The various correspondence, are we postponing reading it into the record or referring it in any way? My question is, if it's school business, school building authority, is there anything pertinent? Or if it's, if they're going to give us some money, I'd like to know about it.
Dr. Colley?
This is in regards to the approval by the MSBA for the two building projects that we have under the green projects, the high school roof and the Macomber roof. Those pieces were actually approved, but it is the town that negotiates, basically does the contract with MSBA. This is just letting us know that, yes, it was approved by the town, yes, it was approved by the MSBA, so we have a viable live project for those two schools. Actually, it's two separate projects.
Make a motion to accept them into...
Go ahead.
My question on that is if they refer to the middle school and if that is an open or is that an open application? I assume if they don't refer to it.
They told me when we were up there, we went to visit, I want to say 3 weeks ago, that they had not closed our application for the middle school green project, which is just the windows. They did unequivocally say they have not paid off anybody for doing remediation work of hazardous materials, but that we could consider continuing with the project of the windows if we so wanted to. We would have to go back to the town and ask for additional funding for that, which would be part of that long-term plan that I keep talking about as to what we're going to do with this building.
Mr. Sullivan?
Well, my question on that project, that money that was approved by the town previously for the middle school project, is that still...
It was approved for 3 projects. It was the 2 roofs and the middle school windows. When we found out that the middle school windows were going to be so expensive, even if just at that point in time we were thinking just doing the windows, it would have eaten up the whole piece of the pie.
It went to the other side.
So we said no, we moved the money to those other ones, which was a good thing because then they found that there was like 7 layers in one part of the roof, and the Macomber has an issue with the drop ceiling actually not having enough room in there to actually be able to work during this past summer.
And what I'd like to make mention on this correspondence is this is funds that came through the federal government, the ARRA 2009, state by state. Massachusetts did not include hazardous material. Other states did. Okay? It's an option that Massachusetts School Building Authority should be urged to make application with the federal government that if they have surplus balance in that account,
To make it available.
to make it available. And then and this why I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's Montana, it's one of the M states that did have hazardous remediation as one of the ARRA projects. Massachusetts did not. They focused on green repairs, weatherization, etc. So they don't have the ability to release any surplus funds. They may have the ability to make an application. The reason I'm urging it is the deadline is September 30th for the state to make that application to revise their FY 11 federal year app process, because they might have to give the money back to the state after September 30th. So I would, as you mentioned, you've met with them. There's some opportunity possibly to continue the middle school project as it is now and ask them to reapply to the state.
I'd also like to note that this doesn't reference the middle school. It's only referencing the Macomber and the high
So
school.
we can tweak what's already opened. We're halfway there with paperwork. I think we,
Is there any other new business? Are there any comments from anybody that's still here? Go ahead, Elaine. Say who you are, even though we all know you.
Well, Elaine Ostroff. I am really impressed and kind of astounded as I hear the nitty-gritty. I had a feeling that you've been dealing through, a lot of stuff, and the range of what I heard tonight from the remediation, from the transportation juggle, from the pizza, it's pretty impressive. I'm here to offer myself and a few other friends as an unofficial public education or PR thing. Last night's vote really made me realize how uninformed and misinformed and disinformed people are. And I would love to have a couple of conversations about what could be done, and I'm glad to work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Elaine.
Elaine.
We'll call.
Yes, we'll be needing some PR in the near future. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel, administrative matters, and litigation?
Are we coming back?
No.
No. So moved. No, I hope
You
not.
want to come back?
No.
Is there a second?
Are we going, I'll second.
We're not leaving here, are we?
Is there discussion?
Are we going?
We'll probably go in
I'm
there.
not sure.
Where were we?
Okay.
We can go in
Also,
these rooms over here, they're,
I didn't know you were playing.
they're
Eric?
clean.
Oh, I made the motion, I thought.
I second.
Yeah, he seconded.
Yeah. Oh, I made the motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
So, roll call.
Aye.
Yes.